Do you? Do you? What is to you? Miles again, with cognitive synergy is what I'm calling it. And I've been building AI agents for over 3 years as a startup founder and entrepreneur, startup advisor, and many other things for several years. And here I'm going to go into part two of whether or not we're in an AI bubble. This is I'm just here in a park here in San Francisco. In the comments, if you know which park it is, let me know. But it's a little late, so hopefully you can see me just fine. But yeah, I'm going to go over kind of the part two of whether or not we're in an AI bubble in general, and what it means for you and how to prepare, because things are changing extremely quickly. Now, as I mentioned, I've been working on AI agents for a very long time. Over $30,000 spent on API costs through the large language models. That's over 600,000 tests ran to the foundation models in compound AI systems taught at Founders Bay and others. Several times on the topic of AI agent engineering, becoming a top voice in LinkedIn, etc. So I hope this kind of helps. But most importantly, I'm kind of well connected here in San Francisco, having these kind of conversations on a regular basis with executives and founders and CEOs at some of the early to mid tier startups that are growing rapidly here in San Francisco. And kind of what triggered this whole thing, I started creating this video before it went quite viral on YouTube and stuff, which means I'm kind of right on the pulse of things, which is good for my own sake and for the sake of the channel. But so this part two, really this kind of endeavor into understanding whether or not we're in an AI bubble has kind of popped up in kind of mentioned in the last video, Sam Altman's B2G, I believe it's BG2 podcast, really well-known podcast where Sam Altman really didn't like the question, hey, you made, in the order of dozens of billions of dollars of commitments to the cloud infrastructure and build out and partnering, over the next 10, 20 years. And how are you supposed to meet all these commitments? If these kind of line up in the trillions, but maybe you're making tens of billions of dollars in revenue. And it's kind of being leveraged kind of 1,000x. And you have to really have a wild imagination. Imagine that the growth trajectory of OpenAI is going to be absolutely ridiculous. That or the industry, in order to imagine payoff. At the same time, we find out the very next day, I think today or yesterday, that Sam Altman or directors of OpenAI actually were seeking grants and loan guarantees from the U.S. federal government as a leak, which coincided kind of at the same time a concern over whether or not this is the case. Now, stock markets have generally been selling off just a bit, especially the S&P 500, the larger mega cap companies. So this is where we're at. Today, which is November 7th, I believe. Yeah. Here, in the evening, everyone's wondering, are we in an AI bubble? And I knew it. I knew I should have sold, and I should have shorted where I could. And and this and that. So I'm going to answer some kind of more specific questions. And this was brought up again in the All In podcast, and many people are commenting on the fact that, yes, we do have to kind of imagine a world of wild, even exponential growth is associated with AI usage. And I will say there is a very real pathway to that, although none of us know the future. Um, um, and there is a bit of a self-fulfilling and circular purchasing and selling going on, circular prophecy happening within the AI tech community, such that um, Sam Altman says, we need a massive data build out. We need lots of energy. And then next thing you know, within weeks of each other, all these contracts are being bought. Massive data infrastructures just getting underway for the future of AI. Not just for United States and Chinese competitive advantage, strategic advantage in the world against each other, but really because they actually believe that this data is going to be used up. Now, as we stand right now in early November 2025, there's OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, in general, on average, by the industry as a whole, could easily use 2 times the amount of compute or 3 times the amount of compute. So if you listen carefully to the experts, they're telling us, those that are in the field, those that are working, they could easily ask for even. It would be ideal to have an order of magnitude more, meaning in the ballpark of 10x times the amount of compute that currently exists today be made available today, and that would absolutely help the whole ecosystem grow even faster. Meaning heavier, larger training runs can be done. Meaning they can increase the inference time. I mean, they can increase the the limitations, and lower the costs associated with AI if they had this build out. So, yeah, they are. So the industry is yelling and screaming, and actually not articulating enough the fact that they are screaming and hurting for more compute. This is extremely true. And where is all the money going to? Compute, and in a lot of cases energy, but not enough. So I just want to have this mental framework as I go into some more specific questions. It's going to be hard actually to imagine any amount of compute that's being built out right now. Even talking about putting computers in orbit and in space with Google and SpaceX thinking of doing this. Is not outside the realm of possibility of needing to be used, especially considering we're just at the chatbot phase. We're just now starting to get into video generation for the first time. These algorithms, we can see massive amounts of improvements associated with the large language models, multimodal models, video generation models, image generation models, extremely improved in efficiency. Nothing's been disseminated into society too much yet, and we haven't even scratched the surface getting into AI agents, which are extremely computationally heavy in comparison to chatbots. And AI agents are going to be the most valuable piece of software and technology that the world has ever seen. So I'm kind of going to go inside here in the kids section, but it's kind of empty, and there's no one around, so I'll just kind of go around just to explore for exploring's sake. But so I'm going to answer some specific questions in here. So I kind of answered a little bit about the Sam Altman quote, what's going on here. But let's go on to Number one, are we really in an AI bubble when 10 loss-making startups are worth nearly 1 trillion? So yeah, this is quite wild. I want to put this in context, though. Uber, Lyft, Google, Facebook, all Meta, all these startups then turned into companies, IPO'd, went on. Airbnb, Airbnb is still loss making. Some of the best companies in the world are absolutely extremely loss making, and we have never seen the most loss making companies in corporations and startups in the world than what we find in like OpenAI and Anthropic right now as we speak. So this is interesting, but investor and overall investors and smart investors do and ought to take into account many things, and not the least of which is the unprecedented nature of the growth associated with the industry. Nature exploration area. So you might know, we might be able to do a quick search on Perplexity and find where we're at now. Exactly. This is kind of a nature area. They even have gardens for people to rent out, which is interesting. The growth alone, what should we expect in the future with just the looking at the very natural growth, the very realistic, God honest, genuine take at the growth. So looking at the growth is unprecedented. I mean, there is no other startup or venture in the world that has grown with the number of users, number of usage, number of revenue increase being thrown at these large language models than we've seen right now. So this goes back to the fundamental belief that this cognitive revolution, this artificial intelligence explosion that we're seeing, is seeing the largest amount of value creation that the world has ever seen yet, and we're just at the beginning. And I believe that. It's hard to not believe that. We don't have something to compare this technology to in the past, except for the transistor, but we're going thousands of times faster in transition and dissemination of the technology into the world and society. So I want you to really think, how different this is in comparison to many other times many people are comparing it to in the past. So we have to be extremely careful about how we make comparisons. But it is smart to kind of understand where we're at, to draw very smart conclusions and paradigms about the past, but to be very nuanced and specific about the present day. And so when the question is, are we really in an AI bubble when 10 loss-making startups are nearly worth 1 trillion? Well, if you actually, they're talking about Anthropic and OpenAI and the likes of these startups that are very loss-making. Many of these companies are making huge losses, investing in their future, and I believe they are. But the second point I want to bring up is when you look at the forward-adjusted multiple. In other words, when you draw out the very realistic and conservative and safe projections associated with the growth into the future, and you buy a little sliver of OpenAI, for example, it's going to take about 8 to 12 years to earn your money back in like earnings and dividends. So interesting. Interesting. So you should be able to earn your money back, but then you own an asset. You still own the asset of OpenAI, and you still make money going into the future. And that's a good investment. I mean, most investors, especially if they can say I invested in AI early, and it's even an impact investment, and that if that's a conservative estimate, what's the breakthrough? What if they had come up with another breakthrough? What if they solve something in biology we've never seen before? What if there's a breakthrough in quantum compute or energy that totally changes and increases the pace by which this technology grows. Um, so thinking about these things, 8 to 12 year payback is actually extremely good of an investment, and especially compared to the big mag, now the Mag 8 or Mag 9 or whatever, S&P 500 investment, where it's taking about 30 years. And, these type of companies are extremely large and they don't grow fast much anymore. And they're starting to grow again with AI, but you get the idea. Uh, Forward adjusted, kind of these startups like OpenAI and Anthropic, they really are risk adjusted. They're actually kind of at a discount, quite a bit. Roughly, very roughly speaking, penciled napkin, 30%, maybe 20% of what you would invest in like the overall stock market, S&P 500, etc. And so at a heavy discount and with an imagination about AI in the future and technology, and optimistic worldview, actually these startups are great investments. And there's no signs. If anything, the S&P 500 and maybe some of the older legacy companies might be disrupted and are extremely overvalued relative to these new startups that are taking all their money and investing in their future and then coming out in a loss every single quarter, every single year. So it does not mean we're in a bubble. It means we're in a new paradigm and entry into a new economy about how these things work. Number two, why did MIT find that 95% of companies get zero return on their 30 to 50 billion AI investment? It could be talking about multiple things. I think they're talking about the MIT study where they found that 95% of AI pilots fail. But they could also very well be talking about early stage, 95% of AI startups, early stage AI startups failing, which I don't think they would have that kind of data. So probably the first, not the latter. But both of these are true. 95% of startups fail, actually over that, and it's hard to tell over time. Maybe less with AI, and maybe the outsized returns of the alphas, the big king winners in each industry, way outweighs that. But that's the whole point of startups. According to the latter point, over 95% of startups fail is expected and is risk adjusted for investors. So they're already taking that into account. And in the former point, where 95% of pilots fail, is that actually the only successful pilots that we see so far are the pilots that are very narrow in use case, very small enterprises, not big enterprises, for many reasons, and I've mentioned in other videos, and I'll go into those more in depth about the challenges and the problems with AI agents and the agentic layer and the AI application layer. But I will say that the reason why 95% of pilots fail is because that's the reason why they're pilots, because it's a new technology. We're going into unexplored business territory and business needs. This is sort of expected. Now, I don't know, this might be unfortunate to hear from a lot of on the investor side if we're talking about in a bubble, as in a financial bubble and as in an investor perspective bubble. But there might be, might be a lot of butt hurt associated with investments going awry. But still, these things should be expected, and they should be risk adjusted, and they should be, should be taken into account in their risk profile when investors are doing this. So overall, still, we're still any really true AI native startup is a real startup, and every startup comes with extreme risks, and that those risks should be taken into account in the risk profile associated with the investments that are being made. So it's all supposed to be. Now, there's bad investors out there. There's a lot of fake investors out there. There's a lot of investors who have no idea what they're doing. So, just be mindful. This has nothing to do with an AI bubble. This has nothing to do with the underlying technology and the value associated with that with the technology. It has everything to do with people making mistakes and trying new things and innovation and the natural process of kind of the Darwinian evolution of, so to speak, the evolution and the survival of the fittest of startup land ecosystem, and it's very expected and has been going on for over 50, 60, 70 years in technology and in other forms and factors throughout humanity for forever. So this has nothing to do with a bubble. This has no indication of there being a temporary bubble right now. So there's that. What happens when DeepSeek launched and wiped out $1 trillion in market value? Yep, this was very temporary. The market has bounced back. So it was just a blip in the bubble in hindsight. We can see that perfectly now. All the values have way up compared to the amount they went down, like 5% or 10% when DeepSeek hit. But the fear of DeepSeek was that China was doing way better than the U.S., and they did have some great major breakthroughs. But still, the U.S. is very much leading in AI, but lesser and lesser so over time. So something to be cognizant of, but certainly nothing. Also, very smart people, kind of got together and were kind of going back and forth online and figured when the AI models get more efficient, like the DeepSeek model did, we actually very much can lend itself to a what's called the Jevons paradox, or a Jevons rule, meaning that when things get cheaper, there will be more demand for it, and ultimately more value created as a result of the breakthrough in technology and efficiency. So this actually ended up helping the overall market in the long run, but it was short-term wipeout. How much are AI data centers actually driving up the electricity bills? This is very much local. There have been several projects that have been shut down by local authorities with community uprisings after environmental, water, and electricity cost impact studies have been done in each local area to how much each three of these contributed to the blocking or stopping of these is really hard to tell, and there's not been really any good study associated with this, but it is very clear, as we grow out data centers, there's a large need for compute, and also there's starting to be chips that just can't go online because there's just literally not enough electricity. So we do need a breakthrough in electricity. This could be the number one bottleneck in AI is actually electricity. We might need to wait for more algorithmic improvements and efficiencies to increase over time in order for us to see more improvements in AI or the same pace of improvements as AI has been going at a breakneck speed. It's just something to keep in mind. Are AI scaling laws showing diminishing returns? They are on the margins. They certainly feel like it from an average consumer perspective, because when you are talking with a chatbot that has about the same knowledge as you, any amount of incremental increase in questions you can ask it doesn't seem that much smarter to the average individual. And then secondly, the edge cases do have a long tail. So although the long tail is certainly getting taken care of, and the long tail of issues that can come up that they need to take care of, and they improve in the models, the less often that the average individual sees. So it seems like diminishing returns. There is sort of a value metric, kind of a value to each individual, a value per person, diminishing return, so to speak, for the amount of money going into the investment. But overall, very much so, improvements keep happening, especially in the reasoning models. These reasoning models do take a lot of compute, and that's on a new frontier curve of efficiency and scaling, a brand new scaling law, by which you know um, the reasoning models can think much more efficiently and much more effectively than they currently are, and have been getting better ever since the release of the first reasoning model O1. Have been getting way cheaper and way more efficient, and so we're on a new scaling law, and we might end up going into new scaling laws in the future. So it's kind of yes and no, unknown. It's not a fundamental law of the universe. Scaling laws. The more compute data and algorithmic efficiencies that you put into a model, the better it'll be. But we could get into new scaling laws and new breakthroughs as we do this. But let's go into the next one. How much are AI data centers actually? Here we go. Why are 41% of all venture capitals going to just 10 AI startups? I believe the venture capital community has been getting smarter and smarter, and there is a thing called the power law. So just because a AI smells like a future Facebook doesn't mean it'll turn to a future Facebook. The very top multi sigma outliers that are extreme alpha and kings in their industries are usually the ones that win and then dominate, by some of the best founders. And so all the money kind of goes there. Also, the projects have been getting much larger. So all the money needs to go to kind of the infrastructure, utility, electricity layer. That has a large reason to do with it. Can copyright litigation destroy AI companies' business models? Likely not. Likely society. It looks scary for a while, but it looks like society could. And there's a lot of nuance to that, but ultimately this was a big scare in social media and a lot of different things. But ultimately, creators will win. The consumer will win. Decentralization will win. In the long arc of things, I can go into so much more there, but for the sake of time, our enterprise is actually deploying AI agents at scale. Not the ones I envision. Not even close. No. So there's a lot more potential and room for growth there, and can certainly be done. How is DeepSeek and China's AI efficiency challenging our dominance? It is. But we still have the best ecosystem for AI. There's a lot of nuance to that. It's not been written. It's probably not a war that's ever going to be won. It might go on forever, but we'll see how it goes. Are we actually close to AGI, or is it further away than they claimed? I've heard podcasts say, we're in an AI bubble if we don't get to AGI in a reasonable amount of time, like 2027, 2028, 2029. And we're not in a bubble if we do get to AGI in the expected timeline, 2027, 2028, 2029. I totally disagree. I don't think it's I think we'll get to AGI in a reasonable amount of time, even if it takes another decade. But actually, the most important part is and this lends so much to AGI in many of not all the definitions of AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is the AI model, and or it could happen at the agentic framework. So the AI agents should be able to learn really well. That's the reality of things. Is that these AI agents have to learn really well in order to be successful. And so just be mindful of that. that the most important thing as it relates to going into the enterprise, actually working. I kind of mentioned it before, is AI agents that learn, AI agents that are given access to tools and effectively execute real work in the real world. If it truly starts augmenting and replacing and getting to a point where it's extremely valuable in the workforce and increasing productivity at a large scale, then we are in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, in a 2 to 5, 7 years at most timeline, then we're not anywhere near a bubble. We're in the greatest transformation, and there's not enough money going into the system right now to invest in that. So we are risk adjusted that. But if it takes much longer than 7 years, roughly speaking, to really start making a actual real dent in the labor market, start creating real jobs, higher level paying jobs, more sophisticated jobs, new jobs, augmented jobs, and productivity boost, cognitive shift and revolution. If we don't see those things in kind of a short order, within several years, then we are certainly in an AI bubble, and the stock market will crash. But I do believe the former. I believe this thing will come quickly. I see the progress every day, every week, every month. I'm part of building this, so yeah. But that's kind of a little more fleshed out answer from kind of part one. So thank you so much. Do the boring thing and subscribe, comment, share this with friends as we go along a journey of learning. I can go into more about how to build, when to build, what you can do to preserve your wealth in the future. So stay tuned and come along with this journey as I walk through San Francisco. Day, night, nice neighborhoods, zombie, apocalypse, drug infested neighborhoods. It doesn't matter. But come along with this new journey I'm coming on, and I'll see you on the other side.